Okay. Perfect. Actually, let me see now. I'm trying to see how I can spotlight here. One more thing. Okay, I think it'll just start like this, which is fine. Now that there's, okay. Seriously, I never have this much trouble.
It's
Oh,
probably me.
no, no, you're good. You are awesome. You're super good. So, okay, this one I'm turning off. This one I'm going to. What's up, everybody? James Zheng here. I am here with a special conversation and a special guest. We got the one, the only Layce Watson with us. Layce, how are you doing?
I am fantastic. How are you?
Doing amazing. It's going to be a great conversation because if you're watching this right now, you might have heard about these body balancing drops that are going viral. You might have heard about other things like GLP-1 agonists, most commonly known as semaglutides, Wegovy, Mounjaro, Ozempic, these types of things. And in in these last couple of years, both of these have gone viral. And today has been a conversation that I've been wanting to have for months now. And Layce Watson is the perfect person to have this conversation with us because she has had experience on both fronts. So today we're going to be talking about what is GLP-1 agonists, the shots, what are the drops, what are the differences, can you use both? All these different questions. And I also need to make sure that with such a conversation, nothing we say here is meant to treat, cure, or diagnose anything. We're just giving some information. Our goal is to empower, to encourage, so that you can make your own best informed decisions out there as well too. But if we haven't met before, my name is James Zheng. I've been sharing these drops for the last 13 years. I got introduced to them because maybe like you, I was in a place where I was stuck with my weight and I was skeptical when I heard about the drops. So to use them, lost 25 pounds in 40 days with no exercise. And since then, we've helped hundreds, thousands of people all around the world for the last 13 years balance your bodies, lose weight in a healthy long-term way as well too. But as we go, as I've been in there, I'm always a student to understand what's working and why things work as well too. And when I heard about GLP-1 agonists, I became very fascinated because it's working and it's really going viral. And that's why I want to introduce you today to our good friend Layce Watson. Layce is a nurse practitioner. She's a certified naturopathic practitioner. She has had experience both on the shots and on the drops, and she has a plethora of information that she's going to share with us today. But Layce, let me know, did I miss any of your amazing certifications? I know you have a whole bunch of them.
Just the holistic nutrition consultant, but
Wow.
I don't know that I do a whole lot with that, so I think that's okay.
Doing it today. You're doing it today. So, Layce, thanks for joining me on this conversation. But tell us your story because you started on the GLP-1 agonist before they went viral, even as well.
So first of all, no shame for anyone who wants to lose weight, whatever your path is. I know a lot of times things are vilified and thought of as cheating. And, whatever your path to wellness is, whatever that takes, please do not be ashamed of the choices that you have made to get yourself into a state of wellness. The question, like, why did I choose to take a GLP-1 agonist? And quite simply, I was desperate. I had gained and lost the same weight 4 times in 10 years. I knew how to lose weight. I didn't know how to maintain the weight loss. And I tried extreme starvation. I followed a very strict keto diet. I lost weight both times, but I gained it right back. I never maintained weight loss for more than 1 year. And I had done that 3 times and the weight had come back. And the fourth time, I tried it all again. I tried significant calorie restriction. I tried going back to keto and intermittent fasting. And I would fast 20 hours a day. I would fast for 20 hours, eat one meal, and go directly back into a 20-hour fast. I tried physical activity, and this time nothing worked.
Mm.
And I went to my doctor, and it was just my normal physical exam. And he asked me, what are some things that you're concerned about? And I said, well, I have this, my shoulder, my hip, whatever. And I said, but honestly, my weight, my weight's a big concern. And it was a concern for me because, and I think a lot of women, especially moms, will resonate with this. I was not present in my family's life. I was hiding from the camera. I have no photos of myself with at my son's high school graduation. I have pictures of him with everyone else, but I'm not in a picture because I didn't want to see myself. And as a mom, I didn't want to feel that way anymore. And I told him, I said, it's my weight. I cannot lose the weight this time. And he said, well, this was back in September of 2022. He said, well, there's a new medicine that's just been approved for diabetes, which I did not meet the criteria for, but he said they're doing some clinical studies for it to be used as a weight loss medication. What do you think about medicine? And to be quite honest, I never thought I would meet criteria for that. And I was thinking about it, and I really thought I finally have an answer. Like, this is what will help me get to where I need to be. And I said yes, and I went home and I cried because of that desperation of wanting to be healthy, want to be in photos with my kids and go on vacation and have fun and just live my life. And I used Mounjaro for from September of 22 through December of 23. And I lost 31 pounds in the first 2 months, which to me was great because now I'm still in that overweight category, but I'm not in the obese category, and I'm feeling better and I have motivation. I reached my medically ideal body weight in January of 23. And for someone of my height, I'm 5'1", that's 110 pounds. And my highest weight was 173 pounds. That's the most that I know that I weighed. Because after that point, I wouldn't weigh myself anymore. But I continued the medicine until the point where my insurance changed. And then it was going to be not $25 a month, but over $500 a month. And I had to weigh, is that something I'm willing to spend? And I was below my goal weight. I had thankfully already been introduced to the drops, and I chose that was not something I was willing to spend that amount of money on. But I was introduced to the Slenderite system and the body balancing drops in July or August of 23 as the business proposition. And at first I thought, I don't need this. I'm at my goal weight. I'm doing fine. I'm feeling great. But I wanted to maintain my weight loss. I wanted to improve my health, because something we'll talk about here in a little bit about these injections, the GLP-1 agonists, is they don't require you to make lifestyle changes. So I was losing weight. I was not eating healthy. I would eat a bag of candy. That would be what I would eat for the day. Or I would go get, I don't know, I'm not going to say Taco Bell, but that's just what came to my mind, because God knows nobody needs to eat Taco Bell. But I really wanted to start using the drops out of my desire to have my own story with the drops, because to me, it's very important to be authentic. And I wanted to share my personal experience. I did not want to share or promote something that I personally did not have any experience with. And I was able to stop using the Mounjaro in December of 23. And now we are in October of 24. And I have maintained my healthy lifestyle. I have maintained my weight loss. And all of that is through these drops and the products that we use, and just my understanding of how important that lifestyle change is for long-term success.
So big. Congratulations, Lacey. I know your family is proud of you. Your whole family transformed as well too. Your husband lost what, 35 pounds in 2 months on the drops or something? Is that right?
Yes, just with the drops. Yes. So he did not use any pharmaceutical medications, and we'll talk about the approved food list in a little while, but he was not real strict with that as well. So really it was the drops that helped him. And he kind of has his own story as well, but 35 pounds in 2 months. So
wow, come on. He was just trying to catch up with the wifey right there. So could have
he actually beat me. I only lost 31 pounds.
Congratulations on everything. And all of us are on a journey to health, and we're looking for the best options at that moment. So I appreciate your transparency with that. So what I love about you, Lacey, is you have both the medical perspective and the holistic perspective and a personal perspective. So let's go down a little bit of some understanding of all of what you talked about. We talked about GLP-1 agonist. It sounds like a fancy term. It's kind of thrown around out there. And I think half of us don't even know what that actually means. So can you define for us what are GLP-1 agonists?
Absolutely. So the class of medication is not new to the medical world. It's been around since 2005 and specifically created to treat type 2 diabetes. And what they found is, just like with the drops, a side effect of treating diabetes and managing your blood sugar is that you lose weight. So then now, as you mentioned, it's become a viral phenomenon. Everyone wants the weight loss shot. They want to lose weight simply, quickly, without having to make those lifestyle changes. So what we're going to talk about are the two most well-known. The Semaglutide GLP stands for, and that is actually a naturally occurring hormone.
Oh,
it's
hold up. You froze one.
produced in the intestine in a response to the food that we take.
Oh, there we go. We'll be right back, guys. Today's fun. By the way, are you learning anything so far? You know that things are good when there's a lot of resistance here. There you are. Welcome.
I turned my Wi-Fi off. It might be my Wi-Fi lagging, so we'll use my cell signal.
All good. You were starting to define what is GLP-1 and what does that acronym mean? Stand for?
Okay, so GLP stands for glucagon-like peptide. And that actually is a hormone that occurs naturally in the human body, produced in the intestines, and it's secreted after we eat. In response to food intake, our body makes this hormone. The primary role is to regulate our blood sugar and to manage our appetite. Because after we've eaten, normally our blood sugar will go up. We want it to stay stable, but also after we've eaten, we shouldn't have an appetite. We should be full. And when these hormones aren't working correctly, then we eat and we're still hungry. We eat and we have abnormal blood sugar spikes, or we have blood sugar spikes when we don't eat. So the role of this medication is to act on the receptors in our body that those hormones act on. And an agonist is going to potentiate that effect. So it's going to, instead of antagonize something, it's going to be an agonist, and it's going to make it work better. So in theory, that sounds fantastic, right? It acts specifically on two different hormones: insulin, which everyone I'm sure has heard of, maybe didn't know it was a hormone, and then glucagon. And these are hormones that have opposing actions. So when we eat or drink something, then our body secretes insulin. The job of insulin is to literally, I like to call it like the key that opens the door. It opens the cell door, so then it can take the glucose that we've consumed inside the cell to be used for energy. Because, to be truthful, that is why we eat. We don't eat because it's fun, because it tastes good. We eat to provide energy to our body. And if we can't get that energy into the cell, then our cells don't function the way that they're supposed to. So then we're tired and we're sluggish, and there's a whole host of things. We get chronic diseases, and then our blood sugar is just floating around in our blood instead of inside the cell where we need it to, when the insulin is not working appropriately. The antithesis to that, to the insulin, is glucagon. And glucagon is a hormone that is basically, the job of that is to make the liver create either new glucose for energy or to break down the stored glucose. So glucagon is actually released when we are in what we would call a fasting state, or in between meals, because we're not eating to give our body the energy. So we need to get it from somewhere. So glucagon is increased, tells the liver to make the energy, and it's a long, complicated process. I won't get too sciencey with it, because I could spend all day on that. And
Part two, we'll do that.
Yeah. So the medicines The GLP-1 agonists were created to treat diabetes, type 2 diabetes. And the reason for that is when you stimulate insulin secretion, you lower blood sugar. So we know with diabetes, there's uncontrolled blood sugars that cause a host of issues. The medication also suppresses that glucagon secretion. So not only does it increase insulin, which takes glucose out of our blood into the cell, but it also stops telling the liver to create new glucose or to tear down what is stored. So there's that balance. We're increasing one thing and suppressing the other in order to get a stable blood sugar over time. And it's going to prevent that rise that we see after we eat, which is normal, but also for some people, very, very bad for their health because it's not a regulated state. The medications also slow gastric emptying. What does that mean? That means food sits in your stomach longer than normal. First of all, that's why you feel full. You don't eat as much, but that's also why you get some of the side effects that we'll talk about here in a little bit. And there is a plus side to this, though, because it also sits in the intestine longer, and that results in better nutrient absorption. So we do get the benefit of that, and then stable blood sugars over time. Glucose is our body's preferred source of energy. So when we can have insulin and glucagon and all of those things working seamlessly, and we have what we call homeostasis, our body loves that. But when we don't, we get things like insulin resistance, where we are consuming so much glucose. Our body is being bombarded. We're kicking out all of that extra insulin. And it's kind of like, I kind of describe it as when your kid is really annoying, like mom, 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 and eventually you just kind of tune it out. It's the same thing. Our body's like insulin, 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 insulin. And then finally it's like, no, I don't want to respond to that. I'm going to ignore. And you get into a state of insulin resistance, which is going to result in excess body fat, physical inactivity, and that is also going to cause insulin resistance, both of those things. And then poor dietary choices also are going to contribute to insulin resistance. So there's a lot of things that these medications were created to fix, which are good things in the right context. So for people who have diabetes, who are not able to regulate their blood sugar because there's something wrong with the pancreas or this insulin resistance and metabolic syndrome are going on, and there's a lot of things in the body that need healed, these medications make perfect sense. But there's always a caveat to some pharmaceutical medications. Another thing that they do is they actually act directly on the brain in our reward center, reducing hunger. So they tell us like the medicines say, what you ate was really good. You're not hungry now. So you do see that drop in appetite. And by mimicking the action of the natural hormone, they're going to do all the things that our body is supposed to do. But they're going to do it really, really well. And another good thing of the medication, is that they are clinically proven to lower hemoglobin A1C. And that's why it's really important for diabetics. Right. So for someone who has been diagnosed with diabetes, who consult with their physician who are on these medications, that's not the audience that I want to say needs to find a different avenue for long-term success, because that might be their only avenue to decreasing cardiovascular risk and all of those things. And that's a conversation to have with their physician. But I can say that we do have something that can augment that and help facilitate a healthier lifestyle more than just taking a shot or a pill or whatever have you, because they have their own negative potential effects as well. And I will clarify, so semaglutide, everyone's familiar with that. I think that's probably the buzzword of the year, right? So Ozempic is the one that is specifically FDA approved for diabetes. Wegovy is the same medication, both semaglutide, FDA approved for weight loss. The difference is the dosing. So for diabetes, you have a certain dose. For weight loss, you have a certain dose. The medication works the same. It does the same things. The same with Mounjaro. That is tirzepatide. So Mounjaro is for diabetes. And now finally it was approved, I want to say May of this year, for weight loss. And it is Zepbound is the name for that medication. So if you're familiar with any of those, they all primarily work the same way. Mounjaro is a dual receptor agonist, so it has some little extra properties we're not going to get into, but just know created for diabetes, determined super great for weight loss because it's fast and we are a nation that wants instant gratification. I know I do.
Yeah.
I get mad if I can't get Amazon the same day. So I totally
Amazon yesterday, right?
Yeah, right. Like I ordered it 5 minutes ago. Why is it not in my lap? So I understand the need for that instant weight loss. But one thing I like to tell people when I'm talking with patients about these things is we didn't gain weight overnight. We didn't get healthy quickly. It was a process. I used to say, man, you don't wake up fat. Like how do people, and I don't like to use that term, but I did used to say, like, you don't wake up fat. Like, I don't understand why people don't realize. And then I woke up fat. And by that, I mean, I saw like a picture of myself or a video of myself. And I was just like, oh, I didn't realize because the slow process, how unhealthy I had become. And, so those medications work the way that we described, the GLP-1 agonist, just like that. And the Mounjaro has a little added benefit of affecting our carbohydrate and fat breakdown, how we store fat, those kind of things. So it does have better results sometimes than the semaglutide does. And what I would say is that all sounds amazing, right? Like, I want to be able to I wanted to be able to take a shot and lose weight.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Yeah.
But there are side effects to medications. And you hear a lot of buzz about it. I personally didn't experience a ton of severe side effects. I will say, as you titrate the dose of the medication up or you start the medication, you are more prone to having side effects. The most common being GI side effects, because what are we doing? We're acting on the gastrointestinal system. So nausea, vomiting, even diarrhea or constipation, abdominal pain are up to 47% of people in the clinical trials actually experience these side effects.
Wow.
I don't know about you, but I don't want to be nauseated all the time.
No.
Sounds miserable. I didn't have to deal with that. A very common side effect, and that's another buzzword that we see, is like Ozempic face. You lose that subcutaneous fat in the face, but you also lose muscle because we are not training people, teaching people to actually make the lifestyle dietary change that they need. They're just taking a shot for a lot of people and eating what they want. And since we're not metabolizing things the way that we normally would, we're getting a lot of muscle wasting.
So question on here, it seems like you're going to lose weight, or that's the intention, but it seems like the main mechanism to GLP-1 agonists is basically it reduces your hunger, so you just don't eat as much. So it's mainly calorie restriction. And dependent on what someone typically eats, I mean, if they're eating McDonald's all day or the bad things, it's not going to necessarily help their body become healthier. You might lose weight, but not all weight loss is healthy weight loss. Is that correct?
That's absolutely true. You can be overweight and healthy, and you can be super skinny and unhealthy. And I will tell you, for the majority of the time that I was taking the medication, I was traveling for work. I was running a market here, running a market in Chicago, flying to Massachusetts, doing all of these things. It's hard to eat healthy and travel.
Yeah.
So I wasn't making healthy choices. I would get, maybe it would be a buffalo chicken wrap, but there would be a lot of dressing. There would be a lot of cheese. Maybe it was fried chicken in the wrap, and I would eat half of it, but it's still not healthy. It's not good for my lipid levels. It's not good for the development of chronic disease in the long term. Or maybe I would eat a bag of Nerds because I was a candy girl. So there were not any like negative effects of eating the junk because I still lost the weight. And that is what feels magical about that medication. You don't have to exercise. You don't have to make healthy choices. You will lose weight. You're going to eat less because you get full real fast. There were times I would eat like half a cheese stick and I was like, okay, I can't eat anymore. And, Angela would just be like, how are you eating? I'm like, I'm full.
Right.
So really important that we're teaching people that the lifestyle change is most important for long-term health.
Right.
And I won't get into too many things, but there are contraindications to the medication that are like absolute things people can't take them for. There are side effects that can be severe for people, and those are things that you have to weigh for yourself. Do I want to put up with side effects? Do I not?
Right.
And in that respect, too, there are limitations to these medications because they aren't magic. They feel that way. But again, as a clinician, lifestyle change should be the first thing we're recommending to patients. For
Right.
treatment of diabetes, weight loss, high blood pressure, a lot of chronic diseases, the first thing we should be telling people is eat healthy foods,
Yeah.
get more physical activity, lose some weight. We should not be throwing pills and injections at people first line. And I think a lot of clinicians have kind of let patients tell them what they want. And just instead of the argument of let's try lifestyle change, they just say, okay, here's a prescription.
Right.
And I think what we need to focus on is making healthy food choices. I like the term most meals, most days. Some people use an 80-20. Most of the time, I'm going to make good choices, but I'm also going to live my life. And then I use the term, I think I talked with you about this, planned indulgence. I don't like cheat day or cheat meal because there's such a negative connotation. You're not cheating. You're living your life. But if you plan, say, I have a birthday party to go to. I want to have some cake, but I'm going to eat this piece of cake that's this big versus I get there and gosh, there's cake and I haven't had cake in forever. And then I eat 3 pieces because it's delicious. And that's how our body works, right? So healthy food choices would be fantastic if we use that along with the injections.
Gotcha. Well, we hear this, and thanks for being so clear. I love all the quick sayings you have. It's so catchy. It's so simple to have. And I think the main message so far is there's no quick fix. Like anything quick, anything that seems instant will typically have a drawback. That's a principle of life. And I think if we can first shift our mindsets to let's focus on the more important goal, which is what do you want? If you had to weigh them both out, weight loss or longevity and vitality, right? So our goal, what I'm hearing is aim for the more important, I would say it's longevity and vitality. But if you aim there and you do the proper things, and maybe there's some tools we'll talk about too, that can help you get there faster, things like weight loss can happen. But if we're only aiming at the number on the scale, while that's important and helpful, it might not be the end all be all. One of my mentors said this, Lacey, skinny people fall over and die every single day. So it really isn't about being skinny. It's about being healthy. And that's where the drops come in. I know you talked about this earlier as well. But the drops, if you guys aren't familiar, quick thing, it's just 2 simple drops. Put them on your tongue 3 times a day. It's all homeopathic, natural. It supports 4 major hormones. And this is interesting, Lacey, because you talked about GLP-1 agonists target 2, insulin and glucagon. The drops target a similar one, but also different ones too. But can you educate us a little bit? What are some of the hormones that the drops are targeting?
Absolutely. Let me get to that part of my notes. So specifically, the drops were created to affect 4 hormones: cortisol, insulin, leptin, and ghrelin. Most of you have probably heard of cortisol. It's pretty common. It's known as the stress hormone. When we get in that fight or flight state, it's cortisol that's acting on that. And imbalanced cortisol levels are the precursor to chronic inflammation, which is really at the basis of every chronic disease that we develop. So high blood pressure, diabetes, even chronic lung disease, these are all, they have a beginning in a chronic inflammatory state in the body. And our American diet is fuel for inflammation. And I mean, you could go to another country and eat the things that we eat here. I say things because they're not the same. And it's a completely different, ball game. But cortisol, insulin, leptin, and ghrelin. So what is cortisol? We talked about that. It's the stress hormone. What it does when it's elevated, it increases our blood sugar. It increases fat storage, specifically around the abdomen. So you see a lot of people who have you'll see, medically we call it a buffalo hump. They'll have a hump back here
Mm.
where there's fat. They'll have big bellies and little skinny legs and arms, and that's a cortisol problem. It also manages our sleep-wake cycle. And in short term, when we need that fight or flight, those catecholamines for us to respond, elevated cortisol levels are good short term. When they're elevated chronically, that's when disease starts to happen. And cortisol is one of those things, it literally reacts with almost every cell in the body, or interacts, sorry, with every cell in the body. And so what does that mean? When there's disease creeping in, that can manifest in a lot of different ways. And the nice thing about the drops, how they manage cortisol, or how you can understand, do I have a cortisol imbalance? The first thing I would tell you is if you're waking up in the middle of the night, 2 or 3 a.m., that is cortisol. Cortisol has known predicted peaks and valleys. And when you're waking up at 2 or 3 in the morning, that's because your cortisol levels are off. If you are crashing in the afternoon, your cortisol levels are off and they need to be balanced. Are you an emotional eater? That's my husband. He is a stress eater for sure, and the drops have definitely helped him with that. That's your cortisol that drives that. Again, with the sleep, that actually impacts our leptin and ghrelin levels, and we'll talk about those. It's not that those affect our sleep, but our sleep impacts them. So cortisol causing poor sleep has a different effect in the long term. So we've talked about insulin. I don't think we need to spend any more time with that. But what are leptin and ghrelin? Most people have never heard of those. They don't know what those are. But what I can tell you is leptin is the hormone that tells our brain we're full. So we eat, this hormone is secreted, and our brain says, yep, I've eaten enough. I have the energy that I need. Not that, I had this whole pizza or whatever, but I have the energy that the body needs to perform. What happens is over time, when leptin is elevated, you can actually get leptin resistance. And that results with your body not understanding that it's consumed enough energy. So you're still hungry. You don't get that feeling of being full. That's something that poor sleep can actually contribute to. Leptin actually, it's kind of mean, it's released by our fat cells. So we all have fat cells, but the more fat cells we have, the more leptin we have. So then the more likely we are to develop that leptin resistance. There is a direct correlation between the amount of fat cells we have and the amount of leptin that is secreted. And again, it's going to result in consuming more calories. Our metabolism also decreases. So we're eating more and burning less, which is a terrible juxtaposition, increasing our weight gain and increasing the fat that we store. So not a fan of high leptin levels. It's kind of a little enemy to us, I think. And then the fourth one is ghrelin. And ghrelin, I like to call him a goblin. He sounds little green and,
like
angry.
Ghrelin the gremlin.
Yes, he is secreted by the stomach. And it gives us, when it's working appropriately, short-term appetite control. So we eat, we're not hungry because ghrelin's doing what it's supposed to do. And it also influences that reward center in the brain, tells us that was really good, you ate something, you don't need to eat more. When your ghrelin is increased or imbalanced, again, you're going to eat more because guess what you didn't get? You didn't get that reward hit to your brain that told you ate something good, you don't need more. You, again, decrease your metabolism. You increase your weight gain, increase the fat storage, and ultimately increased risk of chronic disease. There is some correlation with hydration and ghrelin levels. We won't get into that, but just know it is called the hunger hormone. And the reason is when it's elevated, it stimulates our appetite. That's what it's supposed to do. So high ghrelin levels, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, like you're hungry for no reason.
Yep.
I've eaten, why am I hungry? And that is very likely to be an imbalance in your ghrelin. And the great thing about the drops is that they balance those hormones naturally.
Wow. Okay. So guys, I hope you understand. So our bodies are amazingly, miraculously put together. So these 4 hormones that I'm sharing on the screen right here, these are the modifiers. These are the things when it comes to your when we hear metabolism, that's essentially what this is. But because these are out of whack by our lifestyle, because of everything that we've been through, that's what leads into unwanted weight gain. That's what leads into insulin sensitivity, insensitivity. That's what leads into all these other issues. So what's powerful about the drops is we are targeting the root. And this is why I love this, Layce, compared to any other quote unquote weight management program, is that we're actually targeting the root cause of what leads to all of these things. It's not just, you talk about GLP-1 agonists being mainly calorie restriction. Most diets are basically that. Just the drug can make it a little bit easier to do that as well too. But that's why people that are using the drops are not just getting good results, but they're keeping it off as well too. In fact, in the clinical trial, people that use the drops compared to diet and exercise by itself, they lost 2 times more weight by just using the drops, because it's balancing these little things that are going on there. So Layce, question then, for you personally, or even people probably ask you, because you did use both the GLP-1 agonist and the drops at the same time. Of course, consult your physician, and everyone's different, but are you able to do that? Like, are there contraindications with the drops and the shot and everything?
There are not contraindications. And that's the great thing about homeopathy. And people can Google the ingredients of the drops, and I've seen people say, oh, this causes big problems. But people need to understand homeopathy. And what that does is it takes the raw ingredient and it dilutes it way down. So the concept of homeopathy is that like treats like. So you take something that is expected or known to cause a problem, like nausea, whatever, and then you dilute it down so far that only just a teeny little molecule of this actually still exists in that formula, and it is felt, believed, clinically proven at times to actually treat the nausea instead of causing it. So homeopathy, what I love about it is there's no chemicals, there's no additives, it's natural. I honestly make our toothpaste. I make our cleaning products. I diffuse essential oils instead of using chemical like sprays for my house. Yeah. Like there are so many chemicals and additives in the things that we surround ourselves with. If I'm able to make something that is all natural, I know all of the ingredients that are in it. I make my own salad dressing. Like there are a host of things that I do because I know that it's better for my health.
Right, right. Hey, guys, if you want to be in Layce's house for a party, put me in the comments. That's the place to be at. But yeah, it's that awareness to know what are ways to eliminate toxicity, what are ways to put things that are more natural in our body so it can do what God designed our bodies to be able to do. So you can use both. And then eventually you weaned off of the semaglutide or the GLP-1 agonist as well. And then you just use the drops as well. And something you touched base on, which I think is super important to talk about, is the main goal. Every weight management program is going to tell you to do this: eat better, eat more protein, eat more veggies, like eliminate the junk. But what I think is important about this program is because we're balancing the ghrelin and the leptin and the insulin and the cortisol, it makes it so that it's easier. I call it liquid discipline, Layce, when you're using the drops. It makes it easier to actually do this because it changes your cravings and everything. But what would you have to say on that topic?
I love the approved food list. Now, do I follow it 100% of the time? No, because I know that for myself, I can have a little bit of dairy, I can have a little bit of grain, and I don't have an issue. And I'm not currently in a state of wanting to continue burning fat. But I do follow most of the time a very whole food diet, a very nutrient dense diet. I tell patients all the time, if it comes from a box or the freezer, it is not good for you. It needs to come from the outside of the or the deli, or I don't know what it's even called, the fresh produce section of the grocery store. You can tell I haven't been in a grocery store in forever. I get all of my stuff delivered. But fresh produce, you can cook it, but filling our body with nutrient dense things that are whole foods is so important. And I love that we are supplying people with a list that is anti-inflammatory, it is based on low glycemic index foods. So these foods are ones that don't spike your blood sugar. So we know if you're eating off this list that you're creating a more stable blood sugar for yourself, in addition to what the drops are doing, versus throwing a prescription at someone and saying, here, lose weight. We're offering so many more benefits. Again, changing your taste buds. I know a lot of people are like, I don't like vegetables. If you eat them long enough, your body will crave them.
True.
If you cut the junk out, you'll stop wanting it. It's going to suck, not to be, I mean, just to be frank, it's going to suck for a few days. I do a lot of sugar detoxes for people, 10 days, 14 days, 28-day sugar detoxes, because for some people it takes that long. You don't feel great because all of that stuff is just so toxic in our bodies. And that's one of the great things about the drops we haven't touched on yet. There aren't side effects to the drops. You don't have the side effects with this homeopathic supplement that you get with the pharmaceuticals. You may have symptoms as your body detoxes all that junk out. You may get some nausea. You may get real tired. You may have some acne that flares up, get some headaches, but that's not a side effect of the drops. It's the side effect of the toxins leaving your body. And I think it's really important to call that out, because a lot of people also like, oh, I'm just having side effects like them. No, you're making your body healthier. You're getting that junk out, and it doesn't feel great for a short period of time, but the end result is maintenance and health and vitality and just living. Because otherwise, when we're filling our body with chemicals and additives and preservatives, we're just killing ourselves more.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Makes
I kind of went off on a tangent.
No, it's so good. Guys, I hope you're getting a lot from this. So let me sum things up as we start wrapping up. We talked about a lot. I thank you for going so much into the, no joke, what Lacey, you just shared, I think people have tried to look for, and you can try to put this information together, but put it together in this little pretty box with a bow that's super balanced and everything. Powerful. This is what I'm hearing. When we look at weight loss, we're looking at these two options, and you're thinking to yourself, what should I consider? Maybe you're on one already. One is GLP-1 agonist, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. GLP-1 agonist, here's a couple things. You will lose weight, but you have to be mindful on potential side effects and what is the long-term plan of what you're doing. If we're looking at something for a quick fix and not changing our underlying lifestyle, you're probably not going to be as happy with the end result. It's not going to get wellness. You might lose weight, but you might not be well at the end. And that's where we have to be mindful and considerate of. And it costs, let's call it $500 a month. Then we look at the drops. The drops have no side effects. The drops are all natural. The drops are homeopathic. And they actually target 2 times more hormones than GLP-1 agonists do. Insulin, cortisol, ghrelin, and leptin. And it's balancing your body, and it's allowing itself to release weight and do so much more. But also, we're helping you transition into the healthier lifestyle in an easier way as well, where you can have long-term longevity, vitality, and health as well, and lose weight. Do you think that's like a summary of that? Anything else you would add to that?
I do think that's a really good summary. And again, I think the key is knowing like what next, right? If you're on the injections, that is the key. What is your plan? Because at some point you're going to reach your medically desired weight. You're not going to qualify for a prescription any longer. Or maybe it becomes cost prohibitive and you look at it and say, I don't want to spend this money. I'd rather spend that money taking my family on vacation or whatever it is. Or your insurance changes or whatever. There's going to be a time where that medication is no longer for you. What next? Because if you simply, and you don't have to wean off of it, you can stop it at any time. You'll have a little bit of effects will probably last about a month. But after that, if you have not changed your lifestyle, you will start to gain weight. You're not going to have that appetite control. You're not going to have that balance in your insulin and glucagon levels. So that weight's going to come back on. if you don't make those lifestyle changes. And that's what's great about the drops in the slenderized system and the approved food list and the support that you get, because you're learning, maybe it's while you're taking the GLP-1 agonist, you're learning how to live a healthier lifestyle. You're learning how to make good food choices most meals, most days, and have a planned indulgence one time when you have an event or you whatever, celebrating your, I don't care what it is, you're planning, so you're going to indulge less and in a more controlled manner, because we still want to live life. And that's one of the things that people will find when they're living, when they're trying to follow very strict things that are not sustainable. Then you do what I did. You stop and you gain all the way back, because you cannot sustain those things. So the drops give us the willpower. When you see results, you have motivation. You're feeling better, better energy, you're sleeping better. All of these things, your hormones are balanced. Your body is functioning the way it was created to function. And you're not adding chemicals and preservatives and all of those things. You're not, maybe you just don't want to give yourself a shot every week. Not everybody can do that.
No.
I've drawn my own blood. I'm crazy, but some people can't. So there's a factor in this that, again, no shame to the person who chooses to utilize that treatment. But I would encourage you to look for a healthier, long-term lifestyle change. Because it's not don't call it a diet, because nobody likes to diet. You're making a change in your lifestyle.
Makes total sense. Layce, thank you so much for your wisdom, your encouragement. This is, bar none, the best conversation I've ever heard on this topic. Well balanced, well cited, well encouraged. So guys, if you saw this, first of all, be sure to follow Layce. Take a look at her stuff. This, can you tell? This is just the tip of the iceberg. You probably have 10 pages more notes than what it is that we recover here. So we're going to have to do many more parts. So informative. But also, if you're looking at this for the first time and you're considering, hey, should I take a look at these drops? Get back to the person that connected you with this and ask for some more information. Or you might even consider partnering with us on this mission, because Layce, like you mentioned, you got involved because of the business aspect. There's a world praying and desperate for solutions. And we have an answer that can help people do things in a natural, holistic way to be able to have longevity, vitality, and the desired outcomes that they're looking for. So Layce, thank you so much, sister. This was so amazing, better than I expected.
Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute honor.